today we're going to be looking at the Harvest Shawl. Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel Kazzalistic, and hi to my new subscribers. Thank you for joining me on my crochet vlog channel. So first of all, I just want to apologise for the croaky voice. I haven't been well. I'll explain more at the life update part of the video at the end. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to understand me enough. So just bear with me. My voice kind of is coming and going at the minute. So today we're going to be looking at the Harvest Shawl, it's called. So this is the finished piece. It's quite a wide one. It's not particularly deep, but it is quite wide. So this is how mine has come out. I think this is a really pretty design. It's quite simple, but really effective. And I've edged it with some of the colour from the original ball, and obviously done the bottom edges with cream or white. I can't remember, cream. Oh dear. Right, so I'm just going to fold it in half so you can just sort of see what it's like. So that's the half the width there. That's folded in half, so it gives you a rough idea. So it does, if I put it on, it does go around you quite nicely, and it is literally an arm span in width, and it goes about halfway down my back roughly. So it's a nice size. It's a good one for carrying around with you if you're out and about, in particular. It's sort of in the summer. Really enjoyed doing this. So I'll do the hook and the yarn and stuff first. So the hook I used was a 5mm hook. The yarn I've used, I'm just going to undo the label because I've stuck it down, was one of the cakes that was sent to me by my anonymous donor. I remember to say anonymous this time. So the cake is a cake that I've used, and this is, I think, a fairly new one that's out. It's called King Cole Curiosity Double Knitting. So that's the label there. It's a 150g ball, which is 100% premium acrylic, which is approximately 524 yards or 480 metres. So it's good meterage on it. And the shade is 2895, and it's called Merlin. Right there we go. And out of that ball, that's all I have left, just that tiny little bit which I've recaked, so that will go into my scrap project at some point. And then for the edging across the bottom, so this was basically, as you can see, a self-striping yarn, the Curiosity. Beautiful colours, really love that. And then the edging down the pointed sides, I've used some out of my stash, which is Mariner Double Knit, and the shade is shade 41, which I think is just called Cream. There we go, and that's what I've got left out of a 100g ball. It was a brand new ball. I've used 3/4 of a ball for the cream. So just move the hook out of the way. Right, the pattern is called the Harvest Shawl. It is designed and written by Natasha Thorley of Button Nose Crochet. So that is what her version looked like. Now, I did originally have this printed off, but there was an updated version, the version was updated in November of last year. So just bear that in mind if you have downloaded it previous to that. So that's what hers is like, and that's her details at the bottom there. So now, I quite like this pattern for two reasons. She doesn't specify a specific yarn, so it's pretty flexible. So you can use an 8-ply, a double knit, or a No. 3 worsted weight if you're in the US. And she basically tells you how many grams and how much meterage you need. Now this is two patterns within one, which is why I liked this pattern. So you can actually make this as a scarf, which is a smaller version of the shawl, or you can make the full shawl. I did actually accidentally start to make the scarf, so I've actually done the first section of the scarf accidentally, but I actually wanted to do the shawl. So I've kind of done a little bit of both, but accidentally, and I'll explain how I ended up doing that. So there's 2 patterns within one. One for the scarf. So the scarf, basically she gives you a rough idea that you need 150 grams, 340 meters for the main colour, and then the coordinating colour you'll need 100 grams, which is 295 meters. That's for the scarf. If you're doing it for the shawl, you will need, for your main colour, again 150 grams, but you'll need 390 meters. And for your contrasting colour, you'll need 70 grams, which is 200 meters. And I would say 70 grams was about right. I've used 3/4 of a ball roughly, so that's round about right. You'll need a 5mm hook or an H hook, scissors, needle and stitch markers. She does give measurements for the scarves and that. I'm not going to go into that because that's in the pattern. There's a very thorough key with abbreviations, and this does work in US terminology, so if you're in the UK you just need to bear that in mind. But stitches that you will mainly need to know, the classic stuff, you need to chain, you'll need to know how to do a double crochet, US terms, treble if you're in the UK. You'll need to know how to do a V-stitch. With her V-stitches, which is using double crochets, she does do a chain 2 in the middle. The other stitches that you'll need to know is an extended double crochet, that's in US terminology, so it'll be an extended treble if you're in the UK. How to double crochet 2 together, that's US terms, treble 2 together if you're in the UK. You will need to know how to do a cluster stitch and also how to do a cluster V stitch. Basically it's the same stitch in the same, so you cluster, you do a chain 2 and then cluster again, that's all that means. She also has what she calls a small fan and a large fan, which again is for the border. And she tells you exactly what those mean and breaks it down, which is a series of double crochets and chains basically. So it's not as complicated as it sounds. And you also know how to do picot stitches, but she does explain how to do it. It does give you instructions in the special stitches section. So the pattern is pretty thorough. Now I'm just going to show just a tiny bit. She does have photographs, so you've got an idea of what you're looking for. So both for the scarf and for the shawl there are pictures, which actually I found very, very helpful. There's a couple of points where I didn't find the pattern terribly clear, and that basically saved me. So if you're new to crochet and you've never used the pattern before, this wouldn't be for you. This is definitely for an intermediate at the very least, going into advanced, just because I found some issues with the pattern. So you need to know how to be able to translate and how to work your way out of a problem if your stitch count isn't adding up. But other than that, it's a really nicely written pattern. Like I say, there's lots of pictures. So I started working on this with the main colour section actually when we were doing a hospital trip a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago I think it was now, I've mentioned it on camera, when I was taking my friend to a hospital appointment, and I started working on it in the car. And because I didn't read the key and everything properly before I started, it's very easy to miss. So I'm just going to show you this bit. So there is on one page where it says quite clearly there, scarf. So that's on page 3 of the pattern. So pages 3 and 4 are for the scarf. Page 5, it quite clearly says shawl. And that was the subtle little thing that I missed. It is in quite small print, unfortunately. It didn't kind of headline it. So I missed it because I was rushing, obviously was out, blah, blah, blah. So I got to row 61 of the scarf before I realised that I was doing the scarf and not the shawl. And I had to rip it back to row 8, which was very disheartening. So I had to work like a Trojan to get this finished, unfortunately. So I ended up having to do a lot of it again. And every other row was right, unfortunately. We're using the scarf pattern, so it was like every other row was wrong. So there was no way I could get around it. So basically, I started from this end with a chain 4. And then you're working stitches into this, and then basically you're working backwards and forwards. There are turning chains of 3 at the end of each row, and you're basically working backwards and forwards. Now as you'll see, I've got one straight edge and one obviously that is increasing this side. So at the end of each row, the first I think it's 8 rows are kind of the set up rows, so they do vary a little bit. I'm not going to go into it because obviously I don't want to give the whole pattern away. The whole point of me doing this channel is obviously to try and get you to go and look at the patterns and find something that's exciting for you. But what I will say is every other row you had an increase of 2 double crochet in 1 stitch, and then as you worked back, I'm trying to think which way around it was. So one direction you had, yes, if you're working this way and get it right, you end up finishing with 2 double crochet in 1 stitch, and then what they call an extended double crochet. This is US terminology, so it'd be an extended treble if you're in the UK. And then you work back and then you do 2 double crochet in the first stitch. After you're done you do your chain, and then in the next stitch you do double crochet, and that's basically all you're doing, backwards and forwards until you get to the center point. The center point is just a straight row of double crochet, and then you start decreasing. So basically you have the same thing, so you've got double crochet 2 together, this US terminology, in either the beginning or the end of the row, depending on which direction you're working. So what that basically does is give you a straight edge, and you end up with an increase one side and then a decrease down the other. Now the main issue I had with the pattern, and I'm not sure if it's because I miscounted my rows or whether there was an issue with the pattern, I don't know, but when I got to row 116, my stitch count was out by 1. So I've had to basically change. So for instance, when I got to row 118, it says to chain 3, US double crochet into the next 4 stitches, double crochet 2 together, and then double crochet into the top of your chain, and that should leave you with 7 stitches. But actually I had an extra spare stitch, so I had to do 5 stitches, then do my decrease, and that left me with 8. And basically that threw me out. So from row 116 onwards, basically my stitch count was out. I had an extra stitch, so I'm not sure if that's a mistake I made or if it's a mistake in the pattern, so that's just something you have to bear in mind. So what I did is at the beginning of each row where it said to do straight double crochets, I just did an additional stitch and then just did the decrease where it said to do it, and that worked fine. And then I ended up having to do an extra row, so there's 123 rows in total for the main colour for the shawl. I had to do a 124th row, which consisted of a chain 3 and then double crochet 2 together. That's US terminology, or treble 2 together if you're in the UK. And that's the only problem I had. It was easy to work out, but obviously if you're a beginner that might be a little bit tricky if you're trying to get your head around it, but if you're intermediate or above you should be fine with that. And then the border, you start working from one side. Don't make the mistake I started to do because I wasn't paying attention, I was tired. I started working down the straight edge instead of the obviously the increase side. But it's basically a combination of chains and double crochets, and then as you go along, once you get sort of a couple rows in, you basically got chain 2s, double crochets into the stitch in the previous row, chain 2, and then that's the cluster V, so you've got a chain 2 in the middle. So you do that for, I think it's 4 rows. One thing I did like about her pattern was at the beginning and the end, so sort of at these points, either end and in the centre point, because they're slightly different. Either end is colour coded in purple and the centre point was coloured in pink. I actually found that very, very useful. And she does put nice clear pictures on that and actually help you as well, so I really liked that. It was only the last 2 rows that were different, so you do 5 rows basically. Like I say, that there are some differences at the points, so you're doing like 3 lots of clusters in a row at the centre point rather than obviously doing a chain in between. When you get to row 5, in between each stitch you'll be doing double crochet chain 1, double crochet chain 1 in 1 stitch, so you get what they call a small fan. and then you're doing your cluster as normal and working your way across. And then the sorry, that's the 5th row, this is the 6th, that row's the 5th row, get it right. And this row, you've got DC, chain, DC, chain, and then you're doing the double crochet into the stitch from the previous round, and then you're doing a DC, chain, DC into the chain space. So you need to be able to tell where your chain spaces are and when your stitches are. That is critical for this pattern, particularly if you're going to do the edging. And then the last round is really, really simple, which is this coloured row, which I am denied whether to do a coloured row or a cream row, but I actually think that the colour actually brings out the colour, sort of ties it all together. That's just my personal preference, you might disagree. It's basically single crochets all the way across, so in each stitch and each chain, and then each dip you have a picot of 5 chains. So if you don't know what a picot is, it's a chain of a specific number, and then you slip stitch into the first chain, and it basically creates this little bubble effect. So this was a chain 5, and at the tops of each peak it's a chain 3, and that's all it is across. So that's really nice and easy. So it's not a particularly difficult pattern as long as you know how to work out where your chains are and where your stitches are in particular. And you're okay with, comfortable with increasing and decreasing, you should be able to do this pattern. I personally really enjoyed it. I did find row 6 a little bit confusing, but I found that the photos showed me enough that I could work it out. So that's my only real criticism of the pattern. Other than that, I really like how it's turned out. I think it's really pretty. I really love the King Cole Curiosity yarn as well. I think it's self-striped brilliantly. It's got a nice drape to it. I do need to block this. I haven't blocked this yet, and the main reason I need to block it is because the Mariner is a lot stiffer than the King Cole, but the King Cole already has a nice drape before it's even been blocked. My only criticism with the King Cole was it didn't snag or anything like that. It was really nice to work with, but I did have a knot partway through the ball, so this is why it suddenly goes from like this burnt sort of copper colour straight into the blue. I got partway across the row and it just was a very sudden colour change into the blue, so I tied it off at the end of the row and then just did it so it didn't look right stopping in the middle of the row, because the other colour changes are so subtle, as you can see. So that's my only criticism, was it was a very sudden colour change because of the knot. But it might be that you'll get a cake and it doesn't have a knot in it. It's obviously a problem with the manufacturers. I think we get a lot of that with a lot of balls of yarn and cakes of yarn, don't we? I do think it's laziness on manufacturers' part because they're trying to save money, but they don't realise how annoying it is when you have to tie off and tie in new ends. So that's the project. So I hope that was okay enough. I'm struggling to talk a little bit, so it's a little bit tricky to try and give you all the information. I apologise for Chip squawking. Our male Billy has just started singing in the other room. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, so that's why she's squawking, because she gets a bit excited. So I think he's shut up now, so sod's law, they start when I'm recording. So life update. I'm going to keep it fairly short because I'm sure you can hear my voice is already starting to go. The relationship with my new man is still going very well. We've been together a month at the weekend, which I can't believe. I feel like I've blinked and the time has gone by. The reason why there was lack of videos last week, which I do apologise for, was I was going to record on Sunday and upload on Sunday, and on Saturday night, literally in the space of an hour, I went from being able to talk to not being able to talk at all, basically squeaking. Sunday was very raspy. It was difficult to talk. You wouldn't have been able to understand me at all, and it's slowly coming back. I have had laryngitis 10 years ago, and it feels like that's the same thing. I haven't gone to the doctor because last time I went, which was actually way worse than this time, I just got told not to talk, which is not something I do easily. They don't really treat you unless it's prolonged for over a week. So it's starting to come back. As you can hear, I can talk now. So it just went very suddenly. It's coming back just as quickly as it went. It's just I'm very froggy, and the more I talk, the more it starts to go again, so I'm just having to pace myself with my chatting. But I feel fine, haven't felt ill, didn't have a bug before it, just some random thing just decided to start, so I don't know why that's gone like that. But like I say, I feel fine, so don't worry about me. I'm absolutely fine, just a bit frustrated when I can't talk properly. So as sure as you can appreciate, I couldn't record a video because quite frankly I couldn't talk, and it would have taken me forever to stand here and put signs up or put subtitles across the bottom, and it would have made the video a lot longer. So I felt it was just easier just to wait till my voice came back. So sorry about that, guys. If you were waiting for a video, these things happen, don't they? And unfortunately a video with no talking is pretty dull when you're doing a crochet vlog channel. So I don't know what else. I have a nice impressive bruise on my leg as well. My mum brought her youngest dog over at the weekend. He jumped at me in excitement. I've normally got jeans on, which usually takes some of the claws when he gets very boisterous when we first see him, because he gets very excited. And then he had jogging bottoms on, and his claws basically just, it was like I had nothing on. Went straight down my leg, and by the basic time I went to bed, I had basically black stripes. I look like a zebra down my leg where he's scratched me. So it's a little bit tender. So that's been a little bit interesting. Other than that, not an awful lot to tell you really. Yeah, like I say, things are going well with my man, so I'm very happy. So that's nice to report. I do have hospital appointment coming up. It's not till later in the month, so I'm hoping I'll have some more to report to you once I've obviously know what treatment I'm going to be getting finally. But apart from that, everything's pretty much fine. Did have to post off my Bella. If you're new to the channel, we lost 2 of our dogs within 4 days of each other in January. It's been quite a difficult time. I'm doing okay now, but I'm going to have a ring made with Bella's ashes in for me to keep, so she's always with me. And today I had to basically scoop some of her ashes into a bag. It was not nice, did get upset, and having to post it off was just awful, because it's like you put it through the postal system. It didn't feel right. The result will be worth it, but sorry, it makes my laryngitis makes me cough a little bit when my throat starts to go. So that was a little bit upsetting, but I'm okay now. But yeah, so I was just trying to get my head around that. So I've done that today. Other than that, it's just normal stuff like going to the supermarket and stuff. It's nothing terribly exciting, so I haven't done anything really interesting. But yeah, so what have you all been up to? How are you? I hope your voices are faring better than mine. What's the weather like with you, and what are you working on? I do love hearing from you. I've got about 4 or 5 comments to catch up on, but other than that, I'm pretty much, ooh, that went a bit blurry, don't know what that was about, but pretty much up to date with comments. So leave me a comment and I will get back to you. I just want to say thank you all for your support and for sticking with me while my schedule's been a little bit off kilter. What with losing the dogs this year, new relationship and everything, I've got a lot of readjusting to do. Life's just changed a lot for me this year already. We're not even in April yet. It's been a crazy year. So I just want to thank you all for your continued support on my channel and for sticking with me. I really do appreciate it, and I love you all, and I'm so glad to have you all in my life. So I'm going to end it here before my voice completely goes, if you can still understand me. So until next time, remember to stay well, happy crafting, and until next time, remember to stay true to yourself. Bye.